Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Friday, July 20th. This is Gina McGuire. Over the next several days, we will continue to see wet thunderstorms across parts of Utah. However, a mix of wet and dry thunderstorms will continue pushing north and west as we go through the rest of this week and through the weekend. Today, a mix of wet and dry thunderstorms are expected over central and eastern Nevada up into northern Utah, and then we'll move into northwest Nevada on Saturday and Sunday and up into southern Idaho. These thunderstorms will have gusty outflow winds associated with them. Otherwise, hot and dry weather will continue over northern areas of the Great Basin. Also, some of these thunderstorms may be ongoing during the overnight or early morning hours as well as we go through the weekend. Looking at the last 24 hours, we've had a good amount of lightning over the southern half of the Great Basin, and these thunderstorms were mostly on the wetter side. Some of these brighter areas in green were rainfall amounts of 1/4 to over 1/2 inch of rainfall, with some of the lighter blues generally around 1/10 of an inch. Great Basin fire activity yesterday was light across the geographic area. We did have some significant growth on large fires, especially up into Idaho. Looking at the precipitation over the last week to 2 weeks, you can see most of it again was concentrated over the southern half of the Great Basin with monsoon moisture established in the south. And over the last 2 weeks, again, most of the precipitation in the southern half of the Great Basin, which has been above normal for the time of year. Further north, very dry conditions have continued across Idaho and into northern and northwest Nevada. How this has affected our fuel conditions: ERCs have continued to rise over the northern half of the Great Basin and are now generally between about the 70th and 90th percentile, with some areas above the 90th percentile into northern Utah. Further south, ERCs remain below the 50th percentile with moisture in place. Looking at some of our fuels charts in the drier areas of northwest Utah, the top right image shows these ERCs are at records for the time of year. Also over northwest Nevada, we've continued to see a steady climb in ERC with the warm and dry conditions, and ERCs are now well above normal and approaching records. The satellite loop from this morning shows the strong ridge of high pressure in place near the Four Corners area, with moisture continuing to rotate around the high into southern Nevada, eastern Nevada, and over into the southern half of Utah, which is where that deeper moisture will remain. Further north, we have an area of low pressure over southwest Canada, and this is keeping Idaho mostly warm and dry with moderate southwest winds. Also, this will not allow deep moisture to make it into the northern areas of Nevada and Utah today, with those areas seeing the best chance of a mix of wet and dry thunderstorms. Looking at the weather pattern for later this afternoon, you can see the image on the left where that moisture moves up into parts of western and northeast Nevada today and much of Utah. We have issued high risk for parts of northeast Nevada into northern Utah, which is where the better concentration of lightning might be in the form of wet and dry. Further west over western Nevada, likely most of the thunderstorm activity will remain south of Interstate 80, with dry conditions up north and continued wet thunderstorms in the south. You can look at the image on the left, and this is a better pinpoint of where we expect some of those thunderstorms to be. So again, we are expecting lightning activity along the Sierra front and into parts of central Nevada. Also, that mix of wet and dry lightning over northeast Nevada into northern Utah as well, in those areas that have been very dry. The image on the right shows the wind image. Again, many of these stronger winds over Nevada and Utah are associated with gusty outflow winds with the thunderstorms. And up across Idaho, general west to southwest winds, moderate in the 15 to 20 mile per hour range. As we move into Saturday, this trough of low pressure moves east across Canada, and it will actually allow winds to increase a little bit over central Idaho and pull some of that moisture up into eastern Idaho and Wyoming on Saturday, as well as allow thunderstorms a little bit further north in western Nevada. So we have issued high risk for parts of western and northwest Nevada where these thunderstorms initially return and will be a mix of wet and dry and moving at a fairly decent rate. Other areas will continue to see thunderstorms across the rest of Nevada and Utah, but those again will be transitioning to wet or will continue to be wet over the southern half of the basin. The image on the left shows again where we're pinpointing some of these areas of thunderstorms to be. So again, extending a little bit further north into western and far northwest Nevada, with greater coverage of lightning also into northeast Nevada and parts of central Nevada, and then again pushing back up into eastern Idaho and Wyoming. The wind picture on the right again shows those gusty outflow winds, but also over central Idaho, we will see more sustained wind gusts between 25 and 30 miles per hour as that trough moves east. On Sunday, the ridge of high pressure expands a little bit further north. We still have dry conditions over central Idaho, but thunderstorms generally will be located over much of Nevada and Utah and up into far southern Idaho. We may still have an area where we'll see a mix of wet and dry storms over northwest Nevada, and we will monitor that for potential for high risk on Sunday. Looking at the weather picture on Sunday, again, very similar. Whether those thunderstorms are located, we may see a little bit more activity up in far northwest Nevada later on Sunday night, and we'll continue to watch that. As the ridge builds further north on Sunday, we won't see as many gusty outflow winds with those wetter type thunderstorms, but there still will be some scattered around. The overall forecast amount of precipitation over the next 3 days, generally wet thunderstorms over Utah and the southern half of Nevada, so that's where most of the precipitation is concentrated. As the thunderstorms continue later this weekend, we will see a better chance of more rainfall being a little bit more widespread over the Sierra front into the central Sierra as well, and over eastern Idaho and Wyoming. As we go through next week, we'll continue to deal with thunderstorms. Again, they will be most concentrated over the southern half of the Great Basin, and the northern half of the area will kind of be in and out of thunderstorm activity depending on the day. On Monday, it looks like generally drier weather for the far north with thunderstorms across much of Nevada and Utah. As we go into Tuesday, very similar story. However, those thunderstorms will creep north into southern Idaho once again. And Wednesday, we finally see that moisture really move north up into central Idaho, so we'll see some of those thunderstorms expand across Idaho in areas that have been on the drier side. So we'll continue to watch early to mid portion of next week, especially for Idaho, for any high risk we may need to issue, which may also extend into far northern Nevada. On Thursday, we finally have drier air moving into the western half of the Great Basin, with thunderstorms being pushed further east. The overall forecast amount of precipitation, very similar to the 3-day map. This is the 7-day image, and so again, mainly where those thunderstorms are concentrated is where we'll see the heaviest amounts of precip. Looking at the 8 to 14-day outlook, which takes us into the first few days of August, warm temperatures and above normal continue across the west, and we see a return to a drier signature for precipitation over the northern half of the basin. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back tomorrow for the latest updates.